Jordan, you're joining us here live from the Republican National Convention, and we have Tulsi Gabbard joining us live as well. Jordan, I'll let you take it from here.
Tulsi, I wanted to go to you first. Your just thoughts as we're here at the convention, and so we're kind of stuck in that bubble of the media that we do see and all the events that we're attending, and we go from one to another to another. But Tulsi, your thoughts first on the pick of J.D. Vance, the first millennial to be chosen for a executive branch position to serve as vice president. And I wanted to get your thoughts on the pick of J.D. Vance.
I think it was a good pick from President Trump, and that initial thought. I endorsed J.D. Vance when he ran for the Senate in 2022, and he has shown courage through his short time in the U.S. Senate. The fact that I was literally just scrolling through headlines before we joined each other on this call. Here's one from Politico magazine, quote, "Scared to death, GOP security hawks slam Vance selection." The fact that J.D. Vance's selection as Trump's running mate is terrifying the military-industrial complex and the warmongers in Washington further affirms why he's the right choice. First of all, because he's looking out for what's best for the country, not what's best for the military-industrial complex and those who are profiting off of us being in a constant state of war. Second of all, he's somebody that President Trump knows will have his back. And this is one of the challenges that President Trump had in his last administration was, he had people around him who may have said yes to his face when he said, hey, here's what I want to do. And I'll use as an example when he said we need to get out of Syria now. There were people around him, both those who he appointed as well as those who wear our country's uniform, who were intentionally slow rolling and trying to do the exact opposite of what Trump directed them to do. This is so deeply offensive and goes directly in the face of our democratic process, where unelected people are trying to direct the policy of our country that is exactly opposed to the policy that this elected president had laid out. So again, I think J.D. Vance is a great choice. I look forward to doing all I can to help President Trump and J.D. Vance get elected and bring back this leadership to the White House that actually respects the Constitution and puts the well-being of the American people and our country first.
And Tulsi, like you who continue to serve our country, J.D. Vance has served our country at a time of war as a Marine. So he's not coming to it as someone who is anti-military. I think there's a big distinction to make there. It's not unpatriotic, you are the individuals that put the uniform on and risk your lives for our country. But it's a new way of I think it's the more modern way of thinking, including most, I'd say, those millennial voters inside the Republican Party and new voters who are going to be attracted to the party, we think differently about how the U.S. should engage the world. It doesn't mean we should never engage, but that we shouldn't immediately use that as our first option every time. And that kind of seemed to be where we were going as the Republican Party and the Democrat Party as well over the last decade and a half.
Yeah, you're exactly right. And it is the greatest act of patriotism and service to our country to challenge those whose first reaction is to go to war, who believe that the only way that we can relate with other countries or communicate or send them a message is by making threats of either economic warfare or kinetic warfare. This has gotten us into so many terrible situations that have both had short and long-term costs and consequences ultimately on the American people, our freedom, and our ability to live in a peaceful and prosperous society. So, I think, your point about the generational change, I think, is an important one because by and large, we think for ourselves. We're independent thinkers. We're critical thinkers. At least most of us are. I'm looking at some of the women in Congress and the Democratic side today who are not reflective of these statements. So, but by not just coloring within the lines, but actually asking oftentimes the most obvious questions that the Washington establishment is afraid to ask. What are we doing? What is our objective? Why would we go to war with this country? What are the unintended negative consequences? What's the exit strategy? What does winning look like? These are basic questions that every American and every member of Congress should be asking every time this question of war comes into play. I'm not an isolationist. J.D. Vance is not an isolationist. President Trump is not an isolationist. We just want what's best for our country.
Tulsi, I also wanted to ask you about the what happened on Saturday. And now we're getting new reports that there was an even increased security presence by the Secret Service because of a threat from Iran that continues out of Iran to take out former President Trump during this campaign cycle where he is more exposed. And again, if that was what we saw from an increased Secret Service presence, it's very concerning to a lot of Americans. We know that this campaign is going to be, state to state, city to city for both major candidates. And it feels like we're at a time when our top security in the United States can't secure our candidates.
I'm deeply concerned about this. President Trump is a threat to the power elite in Washington and the deep state. And I believe that the threat posture against him will only likely increase because he's not willing to be controlled by any of them. I am deeply concerned. The longer that this woman stays as the director of the Secret Service, I don't have confidence. I don't have confidence that she can actually secure President Trump or anyone that the Secret Service is charged to secure. You can surround him with more bodies, but if the leadership is not there in truly assessing the threat and creating the conditions and setting the policies for Secret Service agents to do what they have been trained to do, I really fear for President Trump's safety.
Yes, and to go back to just kind of overall your thoughts on the Republican National Convention. Obviously, it's a big night for J.D. Vance. I want to go back to that for a second. What do you think he needs to tell the American people, many of which are learning more about him in the last 24, 48 hours than they knew about him at all over the last couple of years?
I know that the convention today's the theme and topic of the day that they're focusing on is foreign policy. And it's a great opportunity for him to talk about his background, to talk about what this country means to him and what kind of leadership and counsel he will bring for President Trump and how he will take on the warmongers in Washington, to put it bluntly. They come from all different directions. Sometimes they wear a uniform. Sometimes they are appointed civilians, and sometimes they are the lobbyists who are bringing in the big money. It's going to be critical both for J.D. Vance and for those who Trump chooses to surround himself with in his cabinet should he win this election. And I'm going to do everything I can to help support make that happen. He needs people of courage with a backbone who are willing to take on these powerful entities who have been in control in Washington across administrations from both political parties, root out that deep corruption, and make sure that there are people in place at every level who are committed to putting the well-being and interests of our country first. This is something that I would like to hear from J.D. Vance. I think it reflects his views and the kind of leadership that he'll bring, but I think it's important for the country to know the drastic change in leadership that we, the people, will have by electing a Trump-Vance ticket.
I think that's it right there, is how quick things will start changing. I think even before they actually take the oaths of office, I think if they were elected in November, the world will start changing in the U.S.'s favor, knowing who is coming back to the White House and who President Trump is bringing with him this time as vice president, and of course, as they build a team of cabinet officials and top advisors as well. Tulsi, as always, we appreciate your insight into this and to the convention this week. And we'll want to get more of your insight after the convention is over, because a lot of people, again, looking tonight to J.D. Vance and, of course, for this major address from President Trump for the first time since he was shot in an attempted assassination on Saturday. Tulsi, as always, we appreciate you having you on the Sekulow team. And Logan, I know this is a great time for people to support the work of the ACLJ as we are out all over the country and of course, here in Milwaukee to be with leaders inside the Republican Party.
Yeah, we will make sure your voice is heard, whether that's through this broadcast, whether that's people like Jordan who are traveling around the country and around the world, getting your point of view and your views out there. And the work of the ACLJ is doing that in a really strong way. But we can't do it without your financial support. We are in the middle of our Life and Liberty Drive. You can be a part of it right now. All donations are doubled. Go to aclj.org, scan the QR code on your screen. If you're able to, I'm also going to encourage you to become an ACLJ champion. That makes your donation a monthly gift. Our champions are vital to take on any unexpected event at a moment's notice. So be an ACLJ supporter, either a one-time donor or an ACLJ champion today.